mess. You're gonna have to bear with me. My topic today is queerness becoming a trend? Because I think in general, right now, it seems like LGBTQ plus culture is becoming a lot more prominent. And so there is this growing voice online in the world in general saying like the gay agenda is everywhere, everyone is becoming gay. I think people have heard this and you've probably even felt this. So that's my topic. First of all, we're gonna, for the sake of the speech, queer just refers to anything outside of cisgender and heterosexuality. We're gonna ignore the more political aspect in the term. And also the definition of a trend is just a general prevailing movement, direction, or tendency. This is from the dictionary. This is everywhere in life. This is all around, all throughout history. Classic cases, we have the 1920s flapper style. We have like the peace and love movement in the 1970s, the hippies, and we have the Brat Summer of 2024. The view is so funny to me because all of your faces are green right now. Yes, the Brat Summer. The thing is, trends, even if you try to actively defy them, they're everywhere in life, and they go so far as to define an actual era. They influence the way we think, the way we feel, the way we behave. You know all of this. So the question is queerness becoming a trend? We're gonna dive right into it. Part 1, before queerness was queer. This would be before the 20th century. So back then, ancient Greek already had same-sex relationships happening. You can see in the pictures here, these are depictions of, I think, mainly gay relationships. And the thing is, even though these relationships existed, they did not have a label for them. People were not like labeled as homosexual or bisexual the same way they are labeled today. They just were in these relationships. And that's in terms of sexuality and relationships, but also with gender. Native American culture has two-spirited people, which is a gender identity outside of female or male. Basically, with these people, they have both masculine and feminine spirits inside them. And it's not just that I'm masculine and I'm feminine, it's an entirely new identity. So these are all aspects of queerness that we can see before the whole label thing existed, before you could just say, I'm gay, I'm not. These people were already here. This was already a thing. But then we have the 20th century. We have a lot of ups and downs there. By then, by the 20th century, labels already existed. So being queer actually meant you had that name on you. In the early 20th century, I'm sure you all know, there was World War I, which was kind of just a very low point for humanity. But outside of that, and a more specific aspect, in terms of LGBTQ plus treatment in World War I, gay men were pinned with a pink triangle, which showed that they were homosexual, and they were executed for that reason. And homophobia really just worsened in this time. It was not looking great, I'll just put it like that. And for a while, and with depression in general after the war struck, things were just pretty bad. But in 1969, there was the Stonewall riots. This is a very famous event for LGBTQ plus history. This took place in New York City. It was outside of a bar that was raided because of homophobia. And then this was a gigantic riot that made it onto the front page of United States papers. And at this point, LGBTQ plus voices became prominent. They became mainstream. You couldn't really ignore them anymore. They were right there in front of you, and they were loud. And that was a big step up. Right now, I'm sure all of you know we have June Pride parades every year, and that's actually commemorating this event, the Stonewall riots. And also in the 1970s, homosexuality was removed from the list of mental illnesses according to the APA. APA is American Psychiatric Association. So before that, being homosexual, being queer actually meant you had an illness. After this was removed, this was also a giant step up for LGBTQ plus respect and recognition. So that was great. And then it's not so great. In the 1980s, there was a massive HIV outbreak, and homophobia definitely worsened because of this. People started to think that if you come into contact with a gay man, if you so much as look at him or talk to him for a few sentences, you're gonna catch a deadly disease, which is not the case. HIV is not airborne. That's not how it's transmitted. But people started to stigmatize. They started to treat gay people as if they were the cause of this terrible disease, and homophobia was just everywhere. yeah, it was not looking great. In 1996, Bill Clinton, he established the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy in the United States. This was a policy that said people who are explicitly a part of the queer community that identify as LGBTQ+, cannot serve the US military. This was on a federal level. It was like legal. It was just a policy for the country itself. So on a national level, we get this degree of homophobia. Obviously not ideal. So this was kind of another low point for the 20th century. But if we jump out of real life, if we go to media depictions of queer culture, right here we have some pieces of queer media in the 20th century. These are all in the late 20th century, but we have, in 1993, Farewell My Concubine, which is an Asian movie that has a gay lead. We have 1997, 1998, Ellen, Will and Grace, which are American sitcoms that had, for the first time ever, openly gay leading characters. Ellen was openly lesbian, and in Will and Grace, they had openly gay lead characters, and these are all sitcoms that made it onto American primetime television. So again, it was this point where queer culture started to grow mainstream, and there was this kind of really big level of recognition for it. So that's great. So that was the 20th century in general. And then we're gonna move on to now, the 21st century wokeness, where the gay agenda is everywhere. This is Chappell Roan. I love her. So this is a study done by Mackey. It shows the percentage of LGBTQ+ population. And there's future projections here. And because it treats it as like a linear equation, it gets into a really dramatic extent where it says 100% by the year 2030, which I'm sure will not be the case. But that's just the study. If we look at what we have, though, in 2021 to 2024, because this study was done this year, it's already growing. It's a very steady climb upwards. So that's like the actual amount of people in real life. If we again jump to outside of reality to media, the 21st century also has a lot of depictions of queer culture, LGBTQ+ television shows, movies. Steven Universe is a cartoon show, the bottom right over here. And then La Vie d'Adèle and Call Me By Your Name, these are all very famous movies featuring LGBTQ+ leading characters. But the thing is, these movies, these shows, also, as much as it's representation, it is a bit tragic. I don't know if any of you have seen these movies. It's kind of like, I'm gay, so I'm never gonna be able to be with the person I love. My life is over, my family hates me, which is true for some people. This is a very true facet of like the community. But there's also a more lighthearted version, which is in around the 2010s, this started to happen more. We start to see this representation that says, guess what? Gay people can be happy. We have Heartstopper in 2016. We have Booksmart in 2019. These are all movies, comic books that have a predominantly queer leading cast. And the thing is, these, even though they do touch upon the more sad, the more tragic part of the experience, it also just has a happy ending in general. These people had other struggles other than being queer. They were trying to find friendship. They were trying to find, what they want to do with their life, pursue their dreams. They had these issues, and that was kind of the main focus, instead of just being queer. We start to see kind of normalizing a queer identity and how that's not all. Being queer doesn't mean you're only queer. And we also have Chinese queer romance novels that started to rise in around 2019. I'm sure about this year because I entered middle school in 2019, and by then all of my friends in middle school were reading these kind of novels. They were mainly had gay lead characters and a gay romance as the main feature, and this was also a lot more lighthearted. Obviously, sometimes it would be a little bit tragic, but it wasn't that, it's the end of the world if you're part of the LGBTQ+ community. It's just that, these are teenagers and we can fall in love and we can just see where life takes us, all of that. So yeah, that's media. And then we're also gonna look at gender identity because a large part of queerness isn't just sexuality, it's also your gender identity. These are all celebrities because I am hyper-cultured on pop culture. From left to right, we have Lil Nas X, Billie Eilish, and Harry Styles. And these are all celebrities that kind of dressed in non-conforming, if you will, non-conforming outfits at public events for the public eye. And the reception was okay. Like, obviously, homophobic people were always existent, but also this kind of thing, this kind of dressing, this kind of expression is okay right now. And there's a study for non-binary LGBTQ plus adult population percentages, and it says that 11.1% identifies as non-binary. That's a pretty high percentage if you think about it. I think non-binary gender identities is on the rise right now. It's more of a thing that's in this century. Gender non-conforming identities did exist then, but they were a lot less mainstream. Right now, it feels very normal to meet someone and immediately ask, what are your pronouns? Because that's just the way we are right now. And the thing is, it's not just non-binary identities. It's not just they, them pronouns. There's also a rise of neo-pronouns. I'm not very cultured on this because I myself do not identify as a person who uses neo-pronouns. But basically, there are new genders. There are like dozens, thousands, I don't know how many. Just basically any pronouns, and it's not just female and male anymore. There's so much more. And with this, sometimes it does seem to be taking it a little bit far, and there is this forum online that's like, I identify as a Walmart bag. I think a lot of you have probably heard this. My pronouns are wall/mart. Please respect that. This is a bit random, it is a bit out of pocket, and it is, quote unquote, shit posting. But the thing is, even though this might not seem the most respectful, it is, playfully talking about this. And that's something we're able to do now. We're able to just talk about this as if it's a daily discussion, because it is a daily discussion. We're able to joke about this, and we're able to treat this as a normal thing. So yeah, that's a step up. Maybe it's not the best to just say I'm a Walmart bag, but also compared to 100 years ago, where you couldn't so far as kiss a man in public, this is a step up. So that's the 21st century. And then that brings me to my conclusion. Is it a trend? This guy looks funny to me. If we track point A as the start and point B as the end, it does seem like point B is higher than point A in terms of queerness in society in general. It seems like it's an upwards climb. So it seems like, is queerness becoming, wait. It seems like, is queerness becoming a general prevailing movement, a direction, or a tendency? Especially tendency, I think. Yeah, it is. So yeah, queerness is becoming a trend, yay. No. That's not my conclusion. My conclusion is queer expression may be becoming a trend, but queerness itself isn't. If we look at what we just talked about, how celebrities, how they dress, neo-pronouns, maybe just people in life explicitly coming out, these actions are all forms of self-expression, but that does not equate to queerness itself. Queerness has always been here. It's not invented, it's discovered. It's not property, and it's not something that enters the fashion cycle for a couple of years before we as a society decide it's been worn out. That's not how it works. What's really happening is that society is growing more lenient in its attitude in general, so now queer people feel the freedom, feel comfortable to speak aloud, to step up and earn a place in the spotlight to speak for themselves, just as I'm doing right now. We no longer feel this kind of pressing necessity to fit ourselves in a tiny, tidy, clear-cut little box that is called the norm. That's not the case anymore. And when we step back a little bit, let's think, what even is the norm? If you think about hundreds of years ago, women couldn't even show their ankles in public. And versus now, the level of expression, the level of freedom we have in self-expression is exponentially higher. And to that end, the norm itself is expanding. The norm is now fluid, it's not binary anymore. And when you think about it like that, when you go down that spiral, if you think about how queerness is something that fundamentally is defined as something that exists outside of the norm, now that the norm doesn't exist, guess what? Queerness also doesn't realistically exist. It's a bit vague, but the thing is, through history and so many riots and rebellions, we're trying so hard to divide the queer from the non-queer, the political from the non-political. We're treating this whole situation as a scale you tip from one end to the other. But that's not the case. The thing is, queerness doesn't really realistically exist. And sometimes we need to just respect the fact that love is love. I know that's a corny catchphrase that's everywhere, and you've definitely heard it before, but that's just reality. Love is love, and a person is a person. And relationships, emotions, identities, all these things, they're based on, but they exist on a completely different plane from just rigid human recognition. So what do we do now? Queerness does not exist. There's no such thing as being LGBTQ+. There's no such thing as gender. The world is nothing. It's up in the air. Anarchy, yay. No, that's not it. We've come so far, things still have a certain system and how they operate. The truth is, I stand here right now and I say queerness doesn't realistically exist. But sometimes when I'm in class and someone speaks and I'm just like, no, cishet people need to shut up. And that sounds a bit disrespectful, but the truth is, I'm gonna roll my eyes a bit when a person who seems very explicitly cisgender starts to talk to me about gender roles, especially if it's for a woman. Because I'm just used to being like this in the world that I'm used to living in. We have a certain way of operating. So what do? Everything's up in the air right now. And the truth is, I don't really know how to provide some kind of worldwide solution to this. I'm just a singular human being. I'm just a chill guy. But so it's hard to actually say, you know what, nothing exists anymore. Even though that might be the case, that's not how we're gonna go on and live our lives anyways. So what do? It's, again, a bit vague, but the ultimate lesson, the ultimate takeaway I leave with you is choose love. I think our time on Earth is way too terrifyingly limited to just waste it on complaining about political correctness, complaining about how everyone is turning gay. The next time you do that, pause. 7, pause. Pause, take a step back, and instead choose to love, choose to cherish. Cherish how much we're able to talk about right now. Cherish how much we're able to take part in. Cherish how much we are able to freely express ourselves. And cherish how much we're able to love. Always stick with that sentiment when you're thinking about complaining about something. Stick with that sentiment and stick with love. I think when you wake up every morning, you have a choice of what you're going to do today. And I ask you, please choose to put into this world a little bit of love. Thank you.